Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's Michael, and I'm here to talk about something that a lot of MMA fans do, but they don't realize they do it. And that is theorize who's going to stay champion in 2021. Now, there have been some great champions, and actually a very interesting note, no champion lost their belt in a fight this year. Now, obviously, coronavirus had something to do with that. A lot of people were unavailable, but every champion did fight, to be honest with you. You know, that doesn't mean there weren't new champions crowned, but no champion lost their title. And so now we're here to ask, is that going to be the same thing? You know, who is going to be the champion in 2020? And we're going to take a look from the strawweight to the women to the heavyweight of the men, of course. So, starting with the women, 115, does Weili stay champion? Weili, it's wow. You know, it's very interesting. I'm having a hard time thinking about it because I think Weili could absolutely beat Rose Namajunas. And I think the clear number one contender is Rose Namajunas. I know there was a lot of controversy with Dana White, but, you know, he made it clear that Rose is number one if Rose wants to fight, and I think Rose wants to fight. I think Weili can absolutely beat Rose, and I would lean Weili versus Rose, but I wouldn't be surprised if Rose pulls it off either. I think Rose is going to land more shots. I just don't know if she has the durability and the chin to handle Weili's power and tenacity. But I think Weili is definitely, from a striking perspective, gonna be the more slower fighter, and she's definitely gonna be a fighter who's gonna get landed on a lot more than she is gonna land on Rose specifically. And the reason why I know that is because Joanna kind of did something that Rose would usually do, which is try to stay on the outside, land a lot of volume, and frustrate Weili with distance management. Now, that didn't mean that Weili didn't get to Joanna at all. But again, I think both girls have a realistic path to victory. So this is actually really hard to call. Because I would lean Weili, I'm going to stick to my guns and say Weili stays champion. But my confidence level in it is 51% that Weili stays champion. Actually, let's put that to a 50. 50% Weili stays champion. All right, on to 25. I'm not going to hold you on 25. 125, Valentina's going to stay champion. I think Jessica Andrade can definitely catch Valentina with a shot, but if we're really being real with each other, I think Valentina is far and away the best fighter in the 125 division, and it's not even close. My confidence level in Valentina staying champion, I'm going to put it at 90%. Amanda Nunes at 135 and 145. Okay, so assuming Amanda Nunes stays in the UFC until 2021, I think Amanda Nunes is going to be champion for the entire year. But the thing is, I can very realistically see a possibility where she retires. And I don't know if that counts. Let's say it doesn't count, then she absolutely stays champion. So yeah, my answer is Amanda Nunes, my confidence level in her, 95% for both divisions. But if she does retire, then GDR's champion on the women's bantamweight side, and on the women's featherweight side, which is 45, then I think it's either Felicia Spencer or Megan Anderson. But I would lean towards Felicia Spencer. On to the men's divisions. And at flyweight, I'm not so sure about Deiveson Figueiredo. Now, I think Deiveson Figueiredo beat Moreno, and if not for the point taken away, I think it would have been 48-47 Deiveson Figueiredo across the board. But, you know, it is what it is. He lost the point, and it's in the rule book that if you can alter a fight with a foul, you have to lose a point even if it was accidental. So, it is what it is. But assuming there was no point taken away, I think Deiveson Figueiredo won that fight 3 rounds to 2. With that being said, it's not like the fight wasn't competitive, and it's not like I would be mad if someone scored it 3-2 the other way. So, assuming that Brandon Moreno has a very legitimate case at saying that he could be champion in 2021. And, you know, I hear that Cody Garbrandt might stay in 35, but let's say he goes down to 25. He has the knockout power. Let's say it translates. You know, let's say his knockout power translates to 125. He can absolutely knock out everybody in this division. I don't think he might have the skill level to hang with, let's say, an Askar Askarov for 5 rounds, or, you know, be as fast as, let's say, a Perez. But he's definitely going to be able to knock people out, and he's not going to worry too much about knockout power until he faces Figueroa. So I think Cody Garbrandt can legitimately cause some issues for a lot of guys in this division. We'd have to see, but just let's say his skills do translate over to that lower weight class, then he can absolutely do some damage. And keep in mind, it's not like Cody Garbrandt cuts a lot of weight to get to 35. So it's not like he'd be heavily diminished from the weight cut, if diminished at all. So, yeah, not confident in Deiveson Figueroa. I'm going to say he stays as champion, but my confidence level in that is going to be at 45%. Okay, on to the 35. All right, full disclosure. I'm a stan for Aljamain Sterling, so I think he can absolutely beat Petr Yan. Really do. But Petr Yan has this ability to figure out somebody innately in the later rounds, and once he figures you out, it's game over. You know, it's usually somewhere midway in the third that he figures somebody out, and he's just a different animal by that point. So I think that Petr Yan will stay champion of 2021. I think he'll beat Aljamain Sterling. I think he'll beat Corey Sandhagen. That's not to say that I don't think Aljamain Sterling can absolutely beat Petr Yan. I think he can. I think he's got the superior ground game. And I think his kicking game is comprehensive enough that he's going to pose issues for Petr Yan at least early. And same with Corey Sandhagen. His takedown defense is a little suspect, but his ability to switch stances will cause a lot of issues for Petr Yan early. And Corey Sandhagen has an underrated jiu-jitsu game. He really does. And meanwhile, people aren't talking about this, but TJ Dillashaw's coming back. Let's say he still maintains what he was when he came back, or is at least 90%. He can absolutely cause some issues in this division as well. So there's a lot of guys in 35. I'm going to say Petr Yan stays champion for 2021. 2022, though, I'm not so sure. So my confidence level in Petr Yan staying champion, I'm going to put it at around a 55 to 60%, somewhere there. Let's just say, for sake of argument, 57% he stays champion. Moving on to 45, Volkanovski. Full disclosure, I thought Max Holloway won the second fight. But even I would say it'd be absolutely ridiculous for the division not to move on and for Brian Ortega not to get the next shot. And I would even more so say that Zabit and Yair, if let's say they fight, I would say the winner of that gets the next shot after Brian Ortega. And I think Volkanovski beats Ortega. I just haven't, even though he was impressive against Chan Sung Jung, I just don't think Ortega's striking game is comprehensive enough for Alexander Volkanovski's feint game on the feet. Because the big issue for me with Brian Ortega was that he took a lot of shots because guys can get big reactions out of him. In that Max Holloway fight, the reason why he was kind of getting lit up in the fourth was because Max was able to get a big reaction whenever he'd pump out his straight and feint it, and then he'd hit him with a hook. Then he'd go with another straight and another straight. I just don't know if Brian Ortega has really gotten those things out of him yet. And I think Volkanovski is the best feinter in the division. So because of that, I think Volkanovski beats Ortega. But I wouldn't be surprised if Ortega's superior length, improved striking offense, and the nuke that he has when it comes to his jiu-jitsu skills beats Volkanovski either. But if I had to pick, and someone put a gun in my head and said pick, Volkanovski wins. And then I think Volkanovski does beat Zabit or Yair. All that to say that Volkanovski will win those two matchups, and I don't think Max is going to get a shot before those two matchups. Or if I had to be a betting man, I don't think he gets those shots, and quite frankly, I don't think he deserves it over those two guys. But I can definitely see a world where Max Holloway is, the next challenger after Brian Ortega, let's say. And after that, then he gets a shot at Volkanovski, and then it's a toss-up, right? And then it's who knows who wins that fight. But, let's say I draw that timeline, the original timeline I said, where Volkanovski is going to face Ortega, then he's going to face the winner of Yair versus Zabit. Then Volkanovski wins those two matchups, and I think after that, it's reasonable to say that he shuts it down for 2021 and therefore becomes champion. My confidence level in that is a 55%. I don't think it's set in stone that he's going to beat those two guys or those two matchups, but I definitely think he will be the favorite, though. On to 170. It's a division I am pretty confident that Kamaru Usman will stay champion. I think that Kamaru Usman has just superior wrestling to everybody. And I think the Colby Covington fight, as fun as it was and as much as Colby showed that he is a great fighter, I think if they were to face again, a lot of people talk about Colby Covington's improvements on the feet versus Woodley. It's still not enough to say that he's not going to avoid a lot of those shots that Kamaru Usman had. Now, the one thing that did impress me with Colby Covington is the kicks. And so, if he can kick downstairs on Kamaru, and, again, he's one of the few guys who doesn't have to worry about the threat of takedown with Kamaru Usman. If he kicks downstairs on Kamaru, and Kamaru's knee issues have been highly documented, Colby Covington can absolutely win. It's just my confidence level in that is not high. I think Kamaru Usman does win that second matchup, and my confidence level in him beating everybody else, i.e. Masvidal, Edwards, throw whoever. But in 2022, I can absolutely see a world where Wonder Boy, or my pick to beat Kamaru Usman, assuming he's healthy, Santiago Ponzinibbio, do rise to number one contendership status and pose some issues. But alas, if we're talking 2021, I've got Kamaru Usman staying champion, confidence level 60%. 185, Israel Adesanya stays champion, assuming that he doesn't relinquish his middleweight championship. He's basically done everything in the division. I really do think so. The only thing is with him is, what's a rejuvenated Robert Whittaker going to look like against him if he decides to take that rematch with Robert Whittaker? What happens? And I can see a world where Robert Whittaker beats Israel Adesanya in the rematch. It can definitely happen. But if Israel Adesanya is moving on to greater and better things, like the light heavyweight championship, which just got announced recently, then I don't think that matchup's going to happen in 2021, if at all. And I don't think Israel Adesanya should have to fight Robert Whittaker again. I don't think he has to prove anything. He was definitely decisive in his victory the first time. So, yeah. Alright, last two divisions. Light heavyweight. Does Jan keep his title? No. And I don't even think it's because of Israel Adesanya. I know they're facing off March 6th, but I think Jan can absolutely beat Israel Adesanya. I don't know if Israel Adesanya has the strength to kind of hold off Jan. And Jan has kind of figured out a way to stymie a lot of guys to get to weak spots. With Dominic Reyes, he got the close side body kick to work for him, which, if anyone's known how to fight a southpaw, that is the last weapon you expect to land with power. But he figured it out. So, Jan Blachowicz can do some things, right? But I think Israel Adesanya can beat Jan, and that's absolutely a possibility. But let's even say that Jan Blachowicz beats Israel Adesanya. I think that Jan Blachowicz can lose to a lot of guys in this division. I think a rejuvenated Dominic Reyes can beat him. I think Alexander Rakic can beat him. I think Glover Teixeira can beat him. Yuri Prochazka is interesting. I wouldn't say beats him, but is interesting. So there's some guys. And let's even say John Jones decides to come back to the division. Guys, this isn't even a discussion. John Jones is beating Jan Blachowicz. A rejuvenated, ready and right John Jones. I don't think a 70% John Jones is going to beat Jan Blachowicz, but a John Jones who comes correct, forget about it. John Jones is beating everybody in this division. So my confidence level in Jan Blachowicz staying champion is 32%. Let's put it at 32%. I think he's going to lose it at some point. Okay, heavyweight division. Does Stipe stay champion? Does he beat Ngannou? I say yeah. On one hand, I do see the reason why people want a rematch. Because Ngannou, since falling down the mountain, has reached the top of the apex again. So if Stipe is the champion and wants to stay champion, he has to fight the number one contenders. And that goes for every division, for the record. Like, let's not turn to boxing. The reason why the UFC has become popular is because it was anti-boxing. The best were facing the best. For the most part, right? Of course, everyone likes a good money fight here and there, but the best faces the best. But here's the other hand. Ngannou, while reaching the top, has not really shown that he's developed some sort of comprehensive wrestling game or some sort of different look than he did in the first matchup, right? For all we know, Francis Ngannou did zero work on his wrestling, you know? And because of that, if you're Stipe and you haven't really seen a thing that would pose issues, there's nothing really to put it in doubt. But again, you have to face the best and you have to face the number one contenders if you want to keep your championship. So for me, I think it's one of those things where, you know, Stipe's probably not going to fight till August. Maybe sooner, maybe a little later. And he's going to face Francis Ngannou. And if my hunch is correct, where Francis Ngannou didn't work on his wrestling enough to really give Stipe issues in that department, Francis Ngannou probably loses to Stipe the second time. And Stipe won't fight again for the rest of the year, and therefore Stipe stays champion for 2021, right? So I think Stipe wins, and therefore my confidence level for Stipe staying champion is at a 70%. I'm gonna put it at 70%. So that's my video, guys. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys for joining us on this journey in 2020, and hopefully 2021 is better. 2020 was obviously a real crawl, and that's putting it lightly. It sucked. It's just terrible. But hopefully 2021, and especially, you know, that summer range of 2021 will get better. Happy New Year. Hopefully 2021 is better for you if 2020 wasn't. And if 2020 was good for you, then hopefully the good times keep rolling in 2021, right? Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. This was Michael speaking, and until next time, please stay safe.